welcome, even though I should welcome myself to your beautiful house. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely gorgeous. So we're here in Bali. Now, what suburb are we in?
Technically this is Balian,
yep,
which is an hour and 15 to an hour and a half minutes northwest of Canggu.
Yeah, okay, beautiful. And how long have you been here?
My partner and I've been here since May, the end of May.
Yeah, and I've noticed it's in the middle of the jungle. I might even put a little bit of a video in here so people can see, but it is absolutely gorgeous. So I'm guessing you wanted to be away from the hustle and bustle.
Yeah, look, I actually really appreciate contrast in my life. You know, I think I find it very important for me to live in the nature, but then have access to the busier parts of the world. So, but living in the busyness is fun, but I also find that there's too many distractions.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so much easier to think that you have to be busier than what you really need to be.
Yeah. And I think with you're right, this day and age, like people, that hustle mentality as well, the harder we work and the quicker we get to it, the more we will receive, which is not really the case. So being able to go out into these excluded areas, that really opens it up for you, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I find that it maintains the focus inward as opposed to outward. And you know, I'm a visual person, and I also get distracted very easily in a visual sense. Like all through school, all reports were like Taylor gets distracted easily. So if I'm overstimulated, then my mind starts to think that I have to look outside for the answers. Whereas when I'm in the quiet, then there's only inward that you can look. So.
Amazing. I love that. Yeah. And a lot of us do need to go within to really find the answers. Now, Taylor, for people that don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself. You obviously live in Bali, but go into a little bit more detail about who you are and what you do.
So I'm an art therapist, and before I moved to Bali, I was living in the Kimberley. I was living out in Fitzroy Crossing, which is an Aboriginal community 4 hours inland from Broome. I was there, I was working for a non-for-profit supporting young Indigenous boys going to school. And during that time I was studying to be a therapist, and then after that I bought a house in Broome, moved to Broome, and I was working in a drug and alcohol rehabilitation centre as a clinical case manager and delivering art therapy there. So that's the foundation of what I then took into a private practice, and then ultimately put that online, and then decided to move back over to Bali. But it had been since 2018 that I had done a very significant trip overseas. So all through my 20s up into my early 30s, I was traveling the world, and I would often go for a year to 2 years. And then when I'd moved back to Australia, I was born in Melbourne, but I would never really stay there. And I was born in the southeastern suburbs, but I spent a lot of the time, many years, living down the coast in Lorne, and that was home in Victoria. But I also have lived in Adelaide. I played in a band over in Adelaide. I lived in the Kimberleys. I lived in the sunny coast. I moved up there when I was 19. I lived in Byron for a couple of years. So there's always been transiency in my life. There's always been that call to adventure. And this time around was the first time where I really solidified my education, my passion, and my offerings, and then transferred it into a sustainable life overseas.
Do you think one of your core needs might be variety then?
I love a sense of freedom, for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like a big value for you.
And I'm just so inspired by culture and the way people live, you know. And I think that I can see how the correlation between people's values and their belief systems tie into their quality of life. And a lot of the times, from my experience, that the places that seem to promote a healthy way of life or living are in fact, you know, offering more suppression because of the system. And then you go to the places where there is, you know, more of a label of third world or poverty, and you see that these are some of the happiest people that you will encounter. So, you know, that contrast, that dichotomy that I've experienced, witnessed and felt always resonated strongly with me. So I would say from the early days, I was always seeking not only experience, but introspection through contrast.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of restriction too, and as you say, the third world country, they don't have those restrictions in place as much as what they do per se for like somewhere like Australia.
Yeah.
And there is that element of freedom and that happiness because people can literally start a business on the side of the road without having all these rules and regulations in place.
Totally.
Where in Australia, it's so hard to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I mean, look, there are ways to do it without making it hard, but there is a lot of steps and footholds that you have to take in order to do that.
Yeah.
Where over here, it's just their normal way of life. Like you go out, or either go on the street or buy a shop, and it's not all these loopholes that you have to get through just to open up a shop.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And actually, before I moved to the Kimberley, that was my business. I had a barber shop. So, and I experienced exactly what you just spoke about. It was, you know, it wasn't too challenging, but you realize how much legislation, how many contracts, how many sets of approval, how many everything just to actually facilitate your business and not even just facilitate, even just to start it. So, and not only that, the thing that was almost more confronting was in the Australian culture was like when you start to do something different, then there's that tall poppy syndrome as well. There's so many more people questioning what you're doing than supporting what you're doing. And so you've really got to not listen to the noise. You've really got to push through. And when I lived in Amsterdam for a year, and I noticed like one of the strongest pillars of business and entrepreneurial life was collaboration. And it just makes so much sense. It's right. Like if you're going to throw a party, then you get somebody to sponsor it. And so there's going to be people, and then there's going to be exposure, and then bang, there's a party, and then, you know, you go from there. And you tie that into a clothing line, a new launch. It's just like, it all works, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Back home, back in Australia, I would reach out to local companies and be like, hey, would you like to get on board? I'm running this event, this, and this. And people just think that you want free stuff. It's like, I'm not looking for freedom. I'm not looking for something free. I'm just looking to collaborate with the little guy. So that like, and at that time, like, I mean, I haven't drunk in many years, but I would reach out to local breweries and be like, no, what I'm trying to create is people sample your beers here, and then next time they're in the bottle-o, they're going to see him, remember the good time that they have, and they're more inclined to buy the beers. Like, but it was just like a foreign concept.
It is very interesting, isn't it? I feel like that doesn't really play a part in, especially in Australian culture. And I think that's why a lot of people move away as well, especially when they're trying to get in as an influencer or content creation or even a business, because that mentality isn't really there. It is kind of hard to find, unless you go to places like Byron Bay, for example. It is quite prominent there, but in a lot of other places, it's definitely not like that.
Not at all, not at all. I think, and there's so much of that kind of structure within the culture and the system. And, you know, look, I feel very fortunate to have called Australia home for so long and to have grown up there, and the opportunities that I had, and, you know, the colour of my skin. You know, I didn't realise how much of a privilege that was until I lived in an Aboriginal community. And it's just remarkable. Like it's in a remarkable country in so many different ways. But what I realised over time is the cultural identity of Australia is based on a lifestyle. There's no spiritual roots. There's no groundedness. There's no, I mean, Australia is what it is, but there's no long-standing history. The history that people know of Australia, a lot of people ignore. And it's one of those things, so like, where's the depth? Like, where's the root system in Australia? And it's like, going down to the beach and cooking a barbie is, in my opinion, not really culture. It's just a lifestyle.
But that's what they perceive it as culture, or the meat pie, Vegemite sandwich. Like I actually lived in Broome for almost 2 years, so I don't know about yourself, but once I moved to the Kimberleys, it was the real Australia. In a sense. And it opened my mind up so much, and I could go on about Indigenous culture till the cows come home, but I'm so passionate about that. And I'm so angry as well of how Aboriginals are treated in Australia. Like it's phenomenal that we're still at a point there where there is heavy bedded racism in Australia towards people who have been there for tens of thousands of years.
Insane.
And not just that, I'll try not to go into it too much because I get very passionate about it, but
so do I.
They've got structures there that are older than the pyramids as far as we know. I mean, who knows how old the pyramids really are. That's another story. But they've got structures there that have been around for so long, and how beautiful and rich the culture is. They have so many answers to the questions that we're still asking to this day.
Yeah.
And it's sad to see how much of that generational trauma that, colonization has brought into it. And how, like, there are a lot of people who, especially in the Indigenous culture up in Broome, that are still trying to bring that back and also help the kids, because the kids, I mean, unfortunately, their parents have lost their parents, so then they've got that trauma, and then it's got, alcohol or drug problems, which I'm not going to go into it, but, it's a lot of it's to do with the government and not helping those areas. But yeah, when I went to Broome, that was the first time I was like, oh my gosh, this is Australia. And it was the first time I actually felt foreign in my own country.
Yeah.
But I was actually happy to feel foreign.
It's amazing.
Because I was like, this is what people should see. This is the part of Australia that is real and true, and this is Australia.
Yeah.
And it felt like I was living a bit of a lie back in the East, because I'm from Melbourne as well, and I just thought, look, we've created what we've created, but it was just so crazy to see the different perspectives, and I'm sure that would have opened your eyes a lot too.
Absolutely. And there's an identity right there. You have the oldest living Indigenous culture on the planet from Australia, in Australia, and there couldn't be more depth within that root system. Yet, because of the history, people just want it out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
And I would get invited out onto country with traditional owners. I'd be sitting there, and it just all made sense. It all made sense.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
And you're like, and it all dawned on me straight away that it was like, the Aboriginal culture of Australia is a round peg getting pushed through a square hole. And not only that, getting judged every step of the way. And then you add drugs and alcohol into that, which, by the way, is a coping mechanism all around the world.
Yes.
Then you add that into it, and then they get judged even harder.
Yeah.
And what I saw was just like, it's so unfair. It's so unfair because, the stolen generation, the effects of that, when I worked in the rehab, there was people who were still a part of the stolen generation. It was only the 70s that it finished. And then the stories that I would hear, and then you understand the ripple effect that would come because of that. Even not even just if one person experienced that, but the whole culture. Then you've got to try and put it into perspective on the damage that has generationally.
100%.
Like, you think about, maybe if you're fortunate enough in this life to have not had many traumatic experiences, what a blessing. But if you can think back to your own and some of the implications and the things that happen because of it, then try and times that by 1,000 or times that by a whole culture.
Yep.
And then it starts then it's a drop in the ocean of how much sense it actually starts to make.
Yeah.
And then you realize, like, and I would sit there and I'd look at it and I go, look at the value system of like white Australian culture, and look at the structure of the value culture in Aboriginal culture. It is literally day and night. They don't even cross over really in many other ways apart from family and the support systems, but even that is approached differently. And so I thought about it, it's like, because there's people who get upset about the handouts that the government give Aboriginal culture. And so I thought about it, it's like, okay, well, living in the community was so beautiful because it was in the desert, right? It's so hot. Everybody just sits out the front of their house because it's cooler, it's social, it's fun, it's a vibe. You walk down the street, you're waving at everybody, it's beautiful.
Exactly.
So there's white people who are complaining about Aboriginals getting houses, right? And then them not being treated right. But the thing is, if an Aboriginal gave a white guy a spear, what value is a spear to a white guy? He's going to look at it and be like, whatever, maybe toss in the fire, get rid of it.
What am I gonna do
but
with
Aboriginal's like, do you know how much you can do with that?
Yeah.
And then the white guy's like, but this is a house, do you know what you can do with that? And the reality is there frustration because of what the white guy has to do to get the house? Like, if you boil it down to the essence of what it is, if a person was, grounded enough to actually admit, be like, I'm actually jealous that person got a free house because I had to break my back to get mine.
Yeah. Yeah, projection.
Yeah, really. at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, the white guy's like, I don't want this spear. What is it? But the Aboriginal's like, do you know how long it took me to make that? And I can provide food for my family. I can do all of this for my family. So if you put the values next to each other, one, it's like they don't even line up.
Exactly.
Because it's two completely different cultures. Yet you can go to another Indigenous culture anywhere around in the world, and you look at it and go, wow, that's fascinating, cool. Look at the ceremonial gear, look at the all the dancers, look at everything. But yet when it happens in Australia, people, they don't want to know about it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it was equally frustrating, that experience, as what it was euphorically beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been a very big lesson, I assume, going there as well. And I think more people need to do that and immerse themselves in the Indigenous culture of Australia, especially being born in Australia, because it teaches you so much. It teaches you so much, and it teaches you a whole different type of respect as well, because a lot of people don't know anything about the land that they live on. And even in schools, I'm sure you would have had the same situation as I think I had 1 year of my whole entire schooling that was where we learnt a subject on Indigenous culture.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if you even had Indigenous culture in your school, because we only just started to bring it in around my time. So I think you're just a little bit older than me. Did you have any subjects?
No, not at all. Not
and
at all.
that's wild, isn't it? You go over to New Zealand and they've incorporated it so much with the Māoris. So it's just, now let's bring it back a little bit. So you've obviously from Melbourne.
Yes.
And you grew up in Melbourne?
Grew up in Melbourne.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about that. Tell us a little bit about your childhood. And I'm interested to know like what work you were doing back then as well. Yeah. And then we'll take it from there. So
beautiful. So I grew up in a suburb called Springvale, which back then wasn't a very desirable place to live. So it actually created a tighter family unit because there was less going to parks and things like that.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful younger phase of my childhood. We had veggie gardens, my dad built cubby houses. It was just like very hands-on. We had rabbits and dogs and cats and, beautiful environment. I can remember listening to Fleetwood Mac and dancing and making pasta in the kitchen and stuff. So very beautiful.
That's amazing.
And then my parents kind of upgraded and bought a house out in Willers Hill. So huge shift, big upgrade. And then I was going to year 7. I started in a private school. Yep. And I have an older sister. She's 1 year older than me. So at one stage, we're both at a private school. And then one afternoon, parents sat us down and basically said, look, we can't afford to keep putting you guys through school. If you really want it, we'll make it happen, but just know that this is what it is.
Okay. Love the honesty. That's
great.
My
parents were very transparent and very open, and my dad was a scientist, my mum was a nurse, so like, very open parents.
Yep.
And so my sister and I and everybody agreed. We said, it's fine, we'll go to a public school. So year 8, I shifted and we both went to a public school. And there was a huge shift, I went from year 7 doing all the homework, trying to really achieve academically, to then public school trying to fit in socially. And, the things that I probably lacked in my education going to a public school, I gained in social skills. Yeah. Because the demographic was so broad and different, Yeah. And I felt like I had friends from all around the world, but it was like their parents' generation that were so cultural.
Because it was quite multicultural, I assume, being in that.
Yeah, it was really quite multicultural. So there's always pros and cons, but then it was around year 8, year 9 that my dad got made redundant, and then he really kind of fell into this dark place. Okay. And he was always a drinker. My dad was originally from Scotland, and then his drinking got worse and worse. And so that period of high school was, like everybody, you already faced those sort of social challenges. But then the home life was very, very unstable. It was really quite tumultuous. So there was a lot of pattern behaviour. There was a lot of belief system, negative limiting belief systems that were created around that time because of the relationship I had with my dad and the abusiveness that came within that relationship.
Now just go into limiting beliefs, because I know a lot of people don't really understand what that is. Give us a little bit of an explanation on limiting beliefs, especially in that particular area of your life.
Absolutely. Yep. So my dad, he was emotionally avoidant. Yep. You add alcohol into that, then it becomes quite aggressive and quite violent. So the belief system that I created in my mind was that there is something wrong with me. Yep. That he doesn't want to spend time with me, or that I've upset him. And my dad had this tendency to stonewall, but not just for a day. It'd be 2 days, a week.
It can be a lot, can't it?
A month. Like there was times where there was months of my life growing up where we would live in the same house, but he wouldn't talk to me. And he would still be going through these phases of drinking and not sobering up, but like drinking, stop drinking, then go on a binge and then stop and things like that. So it was, you never knew what you were going to get, even though it was like kind of cycle. So this belief system, circling back to that, was I honestly believed that there was something wrong with me. Within that environmental, space that I grew up in, it was, once again, it really anchored in this feeling that I was broken. But I didn't know this, right? I had no idea about this until I actually started looking inward and started seeking help, to be honest. So then what happened is high school finishes, graduated, and it was just kind of, I just wanted to get out of there, I didn't know what to do in life. And I remember sitting in the careers counselor office, and he's like, so you like working with your hands? I was doing woodwork. He's like, you want to be a painter? I was like, nah. He's like, you want to be a brickie? I was like, nah, too hard. He's like, you want to be a carpenter? I was like, oh yeah, that sounds pretty good. Yeah. So next thing you know, I'd left, I'd done my pre-app, and I was in my apprenticeship. And then I did a year and a half in Melbourne, just out of, still living at home. And then one day a buddy calls me and he's like, what are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm nailing on skirting in a cupboard. What are you doing? He's like, man, I just got out of the surf. It's, the sun's shining up here. I'm in boardies. He lived up in the sunny coast. He's like, bro, move up here. It's amazing. And I was like, all right. I'm like, give me a minute. And then
how old were you?
I was 19.
And had you done much traveling beforehand?
No.
Okay. Yep. Love this. Keep going.
And so 5 minutes later, I called him back and I said, yep, I'm coming. He's like, you for real? And I'm like, yeah, 100%.
So what was that pivotal moment where you're like, I'm going to do this?
The pivotal moment was that I realized that I'm in control of my change. Yeah. And that what have I got to lose?
Love that. And you just went with it at 19 years old?
At 19.
And you went by yourself?
Yep. I moved to a spot called Watala, which is a little bit south of Maroochydore and just north of Caloundra there. So
amazing. I lived in Noosa, so I know the area pretty well. It's beautiful out there.
Oh, it's amazing.
Especially moving from Melbourne, because that's where I went first, was to the Sunshine Coast. From leaving Melbourne, I was like, what is this? I felt like I was living in Fiji or something.
Oh, right. It was mental.
Yeah.
I remember going, getting up there, and the backyard, I lived on a spot called Oceanic Drive, and we were on the ocean side. And so imagine the backyard is this perfect grass rectangle with that classic Queensland scrub.
Beautiful.
And then you walk through the scrub, there was a private track, and it went for 200 meters. And then you popped out onto the dunes and you're at the ocean.
I love that.
And the crazy...
Especially as a 19-year-old, you're just like, what is this?
Oh my goodness. Growing up in the suburbs of Melbourne, the cold, the weather, and I've been surfing since I was very young, but I remember there was that exact moment where my whole being expanded and I realized that was a stepping stone to the rest of my life, and I realized because now I've physically experienced that things like that were possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just taking that risk of just not letting fear hold you back, right? Because you could have said no.
Yeah.
And easy. You probably still could be a chippie today back in Melbourne. Nothing against that, but there's a whole world out there. There's so much to experience. And I don't feel like we come to Earth just to do a job, right?
No.
We come to Earth to learn more about ourselves, push past those elements of fear and those barriers to see what else is possible. Who can we expand to become? Who can we be around to, absorb that information and learn? And it's so cool that was your journey. And at 19, you had that first opportunity to take that stepping stone.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And, it was... I know what this is like. It's also easier said than done, right?
It is, yeah.
At that time, I had such a tight group of friends in Melbourne.
Yeah,
I said, we're going out every weekend. I was still look back on it. It's in terms of bonds and connections, laughter and just good times, that was up there. But I remember driving up with my friend, doing a roadie to get to Queensland. And I remember we had some music on. And my friend didn't even know, but I was crying because I was just I knew what I was leaving behind, right? And when I arrived to the sunny coast, I was sleeping on a futon in a lounge. I didn't even have a room. And every Saturday night, my mates would call me and they'd be like, where are you? What's going on? Da, da, da. We miss you. And this happened for 2.5, 3 months, So I was reminded every weekend of what I left behind. But I had to keep checking with myself, no, this is like what you want to do. And I was healthier, I was surfing every day, I'd wake up early on a Sunday and I'd go down to the ocean and I'd just be like, this is what it's for, man. This is what it's for. So once I learned, this is what it's about, like, and you've got to, it's almost like, there's always like a grace period of settling in, you know, and if you can get through that, then it really anchors and you can really just like lean into the opportunities that you have created for yourself, because it is hard, like it's not easy. That's why hence a lot of people don't do it.
Yeah.
But then you do it enough and then you realize, wait, you know.
And it's interesting you also spoke about that element of how that 2 to 3 months you had almost that invisible string attached to you, and a lot of people don't talk about that when making a big move or a big decision, is that there will be something that kind of pulls you back and it's like, no, don't leave, don't come back, we want you. And being able to say no to that and trust yourself and choose that path and still keep showing up for yourself, even though you do have this wonderful group of friends back home or whatever it may be. And I don't think that's spoken about enough, because there is that grace period and it can last up to a year, sometimes even more, of just those little tiny like pulls of come back, and the FOMO as well. So to be able to get past that, it's crazy how much it expands from there. So tell us a little bit more about what happened after that once you moved.
So then I was there for a year and a half, and as it was, you know, fully aligned with what I was doing, I continued my chippie apprenticeship. So I was like third year at that stage, and then I stayed up for a year and a half, moved back to Melbourne, moved down the coast, finished off my apprenticeship, and I was working.
That was down at Lawn, was it?
That was down at Lawn, and I was working at the Falls Festival. I was setting up all the gear before the festival, and I met a Peruvian dude, Pedro. He was telling
Peruvians
me,
are so cool.
Oh, legend. I think he's still cruising around Oz, actually. He's
cool.
he's an amazing cat, and. He just told me about his homeland, you know, and I was just so excited, and I was like, I'm going to South America, and because I was qualified, I had nothing to hold me back. And I remember one day I had like this big atlas out, and it was the continent of South America, and my a buddy came round and he's like, man, so like what are your plans? And I was like, well, I fly into here, which is Santiago, Chile, and then I said 8 months later I fly out of here, which is Mexico City. And I was like, and I don't know what's going to happen in between. Yep. That's my plan.
And South America is such a good place for trial and error and exploring. And we were actually speaking about it before this podcast, but like, it is not an English-speaking continent at all. Like, it can be very difficult, but it's also super rewarding.
Totally.
So tell us a little bit more about that experience, and also navigating the Spanish as well, because I found it really, really interesting myself.
Yeah, it was, as you said, a complete culture shock, right? Like, it feels like you're on another planet.
Yeah.
And I remember being in the back of the cab, just landing in Santiago. This is 2010. Literally 6 days after an earthquake, the whole airport building was completely pancaked. The immigration was under marquees on the tarmac. Yep. And then next thing I'm in a cab with a phrase book, and I was like, hola, hola. Like, I didn't even know how to say hello.
Yeah.
Like, not a word of Spanish.
And how old were you?
I was 21.
Okay. Yeah. So that was a while ago too. So yeah, that would have been like pretty confronting, because the tourism wouldn't have been popping anywhere near as much as what it does now. Yeah,
it was like, and as you said, like, you know, there's everywhere you turn, everybody's speaking Spanish, so you've really got to go out of your way to try and find somebody who can actually speak English and kind of decipher for you.
And you wouldn't have had the apps or anything. Hey?
Oh, not at all.
Oh my gosh, even just thinking about that now, because I had the apps when I was there. But how were you communicating?
I just had a phrase book.
Wow.
Yeah, just kind of went with it. Yeah, old-fashioned. Yeah. But this is also at a time which I still look back on now and think about how wonderful it was, where it was just internet cafes. Yeah. You know, so what the routine that Pat and I created was, I'd go to an internet cafe once a month, once every 3 weeks, once every month. Go in, write all the messages, say the highs, send the photos, do everything. Take me about 3 hours, and then that'd be that.
Yeah.
I'd leave, Benny, and then that's that. And then I would be off on an adventure for another 3 weeks, uncontactable.
That's so good.
No phone, no nothing, just
a lot of people would freak out about not being contactable these days.
It's true. I think because we've become so accustomed to having that connection, but Wi-Fi just wasn't a thing, especially back then, and it was so empowering.
Well, even in South America, because I spent some time in the Amazon in Peru, and Wi-Fi was not a thing, and that was only 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
So I couldn't even imagine like how long ago that was. And
exactly.
you just go to the internet cafe. But that's really cool because you would have been able to connect with the land and the culture so much more.
So much more.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like now that I look back on it, it was also, I just wanted to get as far away from the experiences I had growing up, the negative experience I had growing up. So I just wanted to, I mean, internally I've always been called to travel, right?
Yeah.
But when you're sitting on a bus doing a 32-hour journey by yourself, looking to a landscape that is so foreign to you, people talking to you in a language you don't even understand, it's like the most comforting feeling that I've experienced.
Yeah.
And I noticed that with my travels, that the things that most people would find deeply uncomfortable, I found a lot of comfort in. And then as I then later found out in the years to come, the things that most people find comfortable, I found a lot of discomfort in. Like relationships, emotions, connecting on that sort of like deeper level, vulnerability, all of these things. So it wasn't until later in life where the discomforts were shown. But for me in that younger period, it was just about going as far and as wide and as long as I could go for.
It's interesting too how a lot of people do find those type of things not as scary as vulnerability, as you would say, especially a lot of males too. I find that can be really confronting and really scary, and I can empathize with men because I grew up especially being told not to cry and not to experience emotion. And I mean, you're a therapist, so you understand this, but if you don't confront those things there and then when they happen, you're going to be dealing with that a hell of a lot older, and so it'll come up when you least expect it. So you hold a lot in, and that becomes dis-ease in your body and a lot of issues. So it is really interesting how we can throw ourselves into these really scary, maybe high adrenaline things, but then when it comes to like what we call simple, which is like maybe having a bit of a cry or expressing your emotion or just vulnerability, it is so scary and so hard.
Crazy.
So we'll go into a bit more of how you overcome that, but so you went through South America and you were there for 8 months.
I was there for 8 months.
Yep.
So I travelled all up the west coast of South America, then sailed from Colombia to Panama through San Blas Islands, and then went all through Central America. So it was an incredible surf trip. It was an incredible trip of introspection. I still have friends to this day from excuse me, that journey I was on.
Yeah.
It opened my heart, opened my mind. You know, I fell in love on that trip, and it was just like your first love, right?
Yeah.
And it was, and so everything. It just had everything.
I couldn't even imagine. Yeah. I know exactly what you would have been feeling.
So it was all there, and it was just, and once again, it just like ticked all the boxes I was looking for within myself. You know, like from Queensland to then I'm on the other side of the world. You know, this is it. Like, and so
also external.
Yeah.
If you're not internally validating, external, which sounds like what you were doing, then it's like, yes.
Correct.
This is what I need to feel fulfilled.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because like around every corner, like through every door, there was something new, something exciting.
Yeah.
And it was just so empowering. You know, exactly as you described, like it was all external.
Yeah.
So it was so stimulating on all these levels. And then after that, I end up going and living over in the UK. Actually, I had a bunch of friends that were living over in London, and so next thing you know, I'm doing a London winter, living in a house with 15 other people, and it was so fun. But yet, same thing. Like as the months went on, I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, what am I doing here? You know, I've just gone from like the warmth of Central America to London winter.
Yeah.
And I kind of then realized, I was like, people are kind of doing the same thing that they would be back in Melbourne, for example, as what they are here in London, which is...
Well, we're colonised by the English, so we're going to make sense, hey?
Exactly, right? And I was actually thinking about this in the surf today. Isn't it funny that tall poppy syndrome is in the UK, New Zealand and Australia?
Yep.
Food for thought.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder why.
Yeah, food for thought.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was fun, but it was, once again, it wasn't really aligned. I got to go up to Scotland and see
Were you working?
I was working,
Yep.
yeah. I was doing like, it was, this company was called Sherpa, and you like set up events and kind of do roadie, not full roadie stuff, but like kind of.
Yeah.
But my goal was I wanted to save money and then want to get over to Europe and do a surf trip in Europe, get down to Morocco, things like that. But kind of wore me out, and I was just like, you know, winters I struggle, period. And then also the UK, London, it wasn't really my jam. And the thing I noticed too, to be fair, if you had a lot of money in London, it'd be amazing. But when you're broke in London, it kind of sucks.
And it's very expensive. It always has been.
It always has been. Whereas like, just a quick example, like when I lived in Amsterdam, I lived there for a year, also didn't have much money at that time, that the parks, the vibe, the riding on the bikes, the architecture, the stuff, like you don't need money in Amsterdam to have a good time. But London, I think you kind of got to pay your way to have a bit of fun. You know, they do throw good house parties, but
and I've met a lot of Dutch people. When I went to Europe, I didn't get to go to the Netherlands, but I have found that they're quite open-minded as well, and really easy to have conversations with, which would have been a really cool experience being there for a year.
Absolutely, yeah. It was beautiful. It was beautiful, and in that time, that's where I learned to cut hair. And
so, how did you fall into being a barber?
Yeah, so we'll jump around a bit, but basically the last time I left to go overseas, I was 29, and I had just lived 2 years in Byron, and then I was going over to South Africa, and I was treating myself for my 30th birthday to jump off one of the world's biggest bridge bungee jumps.
Wow.
So that's what I did for my 30th birthday, because I was watching friends around me and I was throwing these fun 30ths, but like not really even remembering what they did. So I was like, I want this to be significant. Because to me, it was like, that was the only symbolic way to cap off my 20s, right? Is jump off a bridge and enter my 30s, because it was fun and it was wild. And so, so I did that, and then I went from South Africa to Senegal, and then Senegal to Morocco, and this was all a big surf trip. Met my now ex-wife. We ended up in California, cruised around there for a bit, and then she had been living out in Hawaii, and so was so kindly invited out to Kauai, and we're living there, and it was beautiful, like gorgeous acreage property, huge sustainable veggie garden. I had work there, you know, I built like a foley, which is like a 5 by 6 meter, like single pitched skillion roof, and it was out right next to the veggie garden that we pitched a tent under. So basically slept under the stars, surfed like the North Shore of Kauai, and just, you know, it was dream, it was paradise. But I remember one day I was down at the ocean, I was looking for waves, and I remember, you know that moment when you can like, you catch yourself and you hear yourself, and I was like, oh,
like intuition?
More like you hear what you're saying. And I was like, the waves aren't big enough, they're not strong enough, it's too crowded. It was just like I was rattling off all this negative. And I remember thinking to myself, it was like this epiphany in that moment. I was like, man, if you can't be happy here, that's something wrong with you.
Like, that's powerful.
That's not the island of Kauai. Like, it's one of the most gorgeous places I've ever been.
Do you think that was the first time you maybe, because you'd been obviously getting a lot of external for a while there, do you think that was the first time you actually started to get internal, where you go internally? Okay.
Because to be honest, it was 6 days after that bungee jump and into my 30s, 6 days into my 30s, and I had this realization. I was like, what are you doing? You know, like, for me, and the more I talk to people about it, like that transition from your 20s to your 30s is quite significant, because you no longer can kind of use the 20s as an excuse to explore or do maybe some reckless behavior or whatever it is. Like, you're in your 30s, so everything shifts, and you go, okay, who am I? Where am I? Where am I going? What am I doing? And all these like deeper introspective questions start emerging.
I can resonate with that a lot, and I think a lot of other people can too.
Yeah, and so it's as exciting as it is. It's, for me, it was deeply confronting, because, as you said, I'd done a very good job to kind of avoid not only relationships, but discomfort, and then responsibility for a very, very long time. You know, very long time.
Yeah.
I'm a responsible person, and I'm a respectful person, but I also kept looking for the next adventure. You know what I mean?
Fulfilling yourself externally, yeah.
Exactly. So when I then ended up in Hawaii and then had this realization, I was like, you have to change your environment. And what I'd noticed is all of the travels that I'd done, it predominantly been focused around surfing. And I realized that I wasn't going to grow into the man that I wanted to be if I was still in the same scene that I've been in most of my life. And so I remember I had custom surfboards that I picked up in South Africa and all my surf gear, and I went to a Sunday market, and you know those little flea markets where you lay everything out, laid it all out, sold it.
Wow.
Sold everything I had.
How did that feel?
Scary. Yeah.
So that was really something that come through to you, like, I got to do this.
Yeah, I got to go. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it was, and I was fortunate that I had those life experiences of starting again. Like, to put in perspective, I've probably started completely again 5-6 times in my life.
Yeah.
You know, so I know that feeling. I can navigate it really well.
Yeah.
But still, when you've got all your whole identity, because that was the thing.
You've attached yourself to surfing, and I can resonate in that with career. I did that as a hotel manager.
Yeah.
I attached myself to that vision and that identity, and I know exactly what it feels like when you finally go, I can't do this anymore. Like, I need to go a different direction.
Because it's a comfort zone, right? Like you can speak the language, you're good at what you do. So there's like, not that you're necessarily looking for it, but there's recognition or potential validation in that.
Yeah.
There's networking, you know enough people. Like, it's all...
You've created a whole community.
You've created a whole community.
Yeah.
Like, but I realized, like, I was having the same conversations in Hawaii as what I was having in Morocco. And the same conversation in
repeating
Morocco
that pattern
as what I was in Australia.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I'm just talking about the surf. I'm talking about waves I've surfed, how big the swell is, how blah, blah, blah. Everything's about surf. And I was like, I need to expand my mind. And I remember saying to myself, I want to sit at a dinner table where we've just prepared dinner and I'm surrounded by people, not necessarily from all walks of life, but from educated backgrounds, from uneducated backgrounds, from different opinions, different religions, different things. I just want a mix, a dichotomy of culture and experience, and for people not to know anything about surfing.
Yep.
So, like, my number one identity at the time, I don't even really bring to the table. I just want to be there observing, listening and feeling a part of it. So when I was in Senegal, I met 2 friends, dear brothers of mine, who from the Netherlands. So fast forward, when I had this realization in Hawaii, I rang up one of my friends and I said, how's Amsterdam, this and that? He said, it's amazing, come check it out. I was like, all right, I'll come check it out for a bit and we'll see what happens. And so after the market, and I sold all my boards, everything's gone.
Is your, at the time, ex or partner, is she coming with you, or?
No, she was staying there.
Okay, so that was also a moment of having to leave that relationship. And you were obviously married?
Not at this stage.
Okay.
But I was avoidant. So
okay, you were avoiding that.
So we'd already had a little bit of long distance, and then we're together. So it was kind of, at that stage, if I look at it, it was a little bit of long distance, but it was mainly was me being avoidant, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
And distance kept me safer.
Okay.
It kept me more.
So she couldn't hurt you, basically.
Yeah, it was less about her hurting me and me feeling hurt, because ultimately, when you show avoidant tendencies, or you're an avoidant person, you're trying to protect the emotions that you don't know how to process.
Yep, gotcha.
So it's less about somebody else's actions and more about the unfamiliarity of what's coming up in you. And because I hadn't even opened the door to my childhood experience, let alone other relationship experiences and things like that, like, I didn't even know where to start. I didn't even know what was even there, you know. And when you don't know, it's more scary when you think about the potential or possibilities of what is there than actually seeing what is there, right?
Yep.
It's crazy.
Yep.
And so you avoid that.
Yeah. Yeah. I see that a lot. especially in this day and age. So what opened the door? I'm assuming moving to Netherlands opened a bit of a door for you?
Yeah, it opened the door to where I'm at now, being my anthropology and sociology connections.
Yep.
So what I mean when I say that is I lived in Amsterdam for a year.
Yep.
When I arrived, within 2 weeks, and my intention, just to bring it back, when I left Australia before my birthday, when I left, my intention was to not return as a carpenter.
Yep.
So I was going to do everything in my power to, transition, to jump ship.
Yep.
Which is hard, as you know, because when you're making good money and you're good at what you do and blah, 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 blah. But I just knew that it was a dead end for me, emotionally. I just knew that I was going to be very unhappy.
Yeah.
So
it's so amazing that you were able to identify that and actually do that, take that step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I remember I was working with this guy. He's a landscaper. He was a few years older than me. Amazing guy, very successful in business. And he turned to me one day and he just says, Taylor, I'm fucking sick of this.
Yeah.
I said, what? What's going on? He's like, man, I've been doing this since I was 16 years old. Everything you could have wanted to achieve in this game, I've achieved it. I've had all the blokes working for me. I've got all the trucks. I've got all the tools, got all the things, the houses. He's like, but I can't stand it. He's like, but what am I going to do? I'm not going to go be a barista for, back then, $17 an hour, $14 an hour. He's like, I've got bills to pay. And in that moment, this light went off, and I remember saying to myself, if I don't jump ship now, it's going to get harder and harder and harder.
Yeah.
And so that interaction was a big turning point for me. I don't think,
like the universe was speaking to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because I just saw that and I felt that pain within him, And it's like our image of success. He'd done it all. He ticked all the boxes, and he was still miserable.
There's actually something powerful I listened to by Will Smith recently, where he goes into about how he's got to the point where he's got all the fame, he's got all the money, he's achieved that. And he said, if you don't have that purpose behind you of what you're actually here for and where you want to go, he goes, it doesn't matter how much money in the world you get, it means nothing because you've got everything. You get to that point where you've literally got everything. And that was a little bit of a wake-up call to me as well, because I was like, so many people are driven to chase money, but what's the money going to give you realistically? Like, is it freedom? Is there a purpose? Are you trying to create impact? So a lot of people are following that never-ending, I'm never going to fully get where I need to go path without knowing. And that having that wake-up call, especially at that age, is such a gift.
Such a gift.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because, when you chase money, it's infinite.
Yep.
Like, you could just, if you wanted to, you could just change. If you achieve what you wanted to achieve financially, you could just put another zero on the end.
And but you keep putting the zeros on it.
Yeah, and it just goes again, and just goes again.
Unless you have like a specific goal of whatever that purpose is for that money, it's just that zero keeps.
Yeah.
Especially with the economy these days.
Yeah, it sure does, does. And as you said, what's it for?
Yep.
What's the intention behind it? And then in the Western world, it's so tied into identity that it's like the more of this means the more of this, which means the more of that, which is happiness, right? But it's not. And in Australia, it's one of the biggest mirages, because Australians are very lucky with the way that they live in terms of safety and security, right? And everything's so organised. Mind you, there's way too many rules, but it's organised. So, but there's also a lot of people who are up to their eyeballs in debt. So the image that somebody has all these things is then portrayed as they've made it, they're successful, they're happy, they're, grounded, but it can be the complete opposite. So it's like, don't believe what you see. So it's like, if you're living in, not just the Matrix, but if you're living in the house of mirrors, you're like, what the hell, what do I strive for?
Yeah.
And then that's why it's like, and as we, if you're always looking out for the answers, then you're looking at something that's fake. That's not real. Yeah. And you're trying to be that or touch that.
Yeah. Or someone else's dream.
Or someone else's dream, or, societal pressures, relationship pressures, family pressures, like expectations, standards, like whatever it may be. It's like you're never going to find what you're looking for because it's all tied in. But yet nobody teaches you that.
No.
Nobody shows you
Oh my
that.
gosh, I could go into it so much about what they need to teach in school.
Yeah. Oh.
But it's so sad to see how long it takes us, especially from the Western culture, how long it takes us to actually find these things out.
Yeah.
And a lot of us spend our entire lives not even knowing any of this stuff because it's just such a hidden thing. And I don't know if the government doesn't want us to know a lot of these things to keep us where we're at, or if it's just something that we've created within ourselves. But I think given that opportunity, that's why I say to a lot of people, go and travel.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about university. Don't worry about all that stuff. You can do that at any time. You can figure that out. But go and travel and go and experience the world and see how other cultures are living, because there is so much to learn, right? And that's what led you to basically Amsterdam as well, to start trying new things.
For sure. Because, for example, and I would share this as a suggestion to anybody listening.
Yep.
If you resonate with that, it's like what I did when I was like, all right, my intention is not to return as a carpenter. Well, what do I want to do, right?
Yeah.
So then you start writing down things like what you want to do. And then I thought about it, I was like, this is an ever-changing list, because really I'm writing down in the moment, I'm like, yeah, I want to do this, I want to do that. But then next week it could all change. So I actually started writing down what I don't want to do. And if people out there write down what they don't want, that is an anchor. That's its own foundation. And then you start building your new life around what you don't want. And it's kind of like, you remember the Magic Eyes? Remember the book? And you stare at like the pixelated picture, and then if you go stare at it long enough, this image appears?
No, I've never heard of that.
Okay,
That sounds
maybe it's
interesting.
my generation. Yeah, Magic Eyes, I think it was called. So basically, it's like the same thing, where if you look at a list of what you don't want for long enough, what you do want will appear. And,
Interesting.
And so, as a small example, being a chippie, getting up at 5 and being on a dirty building site at 7 a.m, I was done, right?
And it's hard on your body too. Let's not forget that. Like, tradesmen, it's very hard on the body. It's not something you can do forever.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, your body is an extra tool, right? So, but working from 7 till 4 or 5, I was done. And I started like, all right, so I wrote down, I don't want that, I don't want that, I don't want that. So then the picture started to emerge. It's like, all right, well, what time would you want to start if you don't want to start at 7? 10 would be pretty good, because I realized, especially after I stopped drinking, that my nights don't mean as much to me as what they did when I drank. So now my mornings were precious. So my mornings were precious, and so I wanted to have my mornings to myself before I went and did everything else. And so 2 weeks into living in Amsterdam, I had this dream, and the dream was from a bird's eye perspective, and I was looking down, and I was the owner of a barbershop. And I could see myself in the barbershop around, didn't know where it was. There was 2 people in the shop. I knew one was me. I had no idea who the other person was, this and that. And then I woke up.
Do you think that was like a download of some sort?
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
For sure.
Cool.
Because I later end up having an employee as well. So
that's amazing.
It's crazy.
The power we have in ourselves is incredible if we actually take the time. Now, were you meditating, or were you dreaming, or what were you doing?
No, I just started meditating at that stage, practice. And I was like, remember I'm sure it's still around, Headspace.
Yep.
So
Headspace. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think a lot of us started on that, actually.
Yeah, I couldn't even do 10 minutes.
Yeah, but that means you needed to do it more than probably anyone. A lot of people say, I can't do it, my mind goes too crazy. Well, that's a very big warning sign that you need to learn how to control your thoughts and be able to seek some quiet.
It's so true.
Yeah, the answers are in the quiet. The answers are in the quiet. Yeah, anyway, sorry, keep going. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, this was all new. So it was then, and my partner at the time, so she had come over from Kauai and she was with me. So I remember going downstairs and I was like, I just had this dream and da-da-da. And then, of course, when it's fresh in your mind, like when you want to buy a new car, right?
Yep.
You start seeing that car everywhere.
Yeah.
So I was like, I was riding around. Yeah, so subconscious. So I was riding around Amsterdam and I'd start to notice all these barbershops, barber school, bits and pieces. And
this is why it's important too, I just want to note on that, is to, one, when you do want to follow something, and maybe it is a little bit scary, and it's that step of, how do I get from here to there, is through meditation, visualization is so powerful, which is what you basically did, visualizing, and then also like writing it down in words as well. Like that's how you manifest.
Yeah.
And that sounds like, because once you do that, and even not even on a spiritual level, but a subconscious level, you're programming that into your brain.
Completely.
And when you said you started to see it, and that's the same when you're buying a new car and all you can see is like Toyotas or whatever you're buying, you're actually programming that in your brain.
Definitely.
And when you do that, that's how manifestation takes place.
Absolutely.
So you've literally done that, and you probably, I'm assuming at the time you didn't know you were actually doing that, but you were doing it? Yeah. How cool is that?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, that was beautiful, because you're right. It's an embodiment, it's when you just believe it, and then you are now actually projecting your beliefs out into the world, and then that's resonating back, right?
Yep.
Like it's just, everything is based up of frequencies and energetic experiences, so that it's like what you think about will manifest.
Yep.
But like people, the craziest part, which I learned within myself, is there's more people that are afraid of success than they are of failure.
Absolutely. It's a big one.
Huge. So it's so easy to limit yourself on how big you dream because of that fear of success.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was crazy. And then I remember, because I met my ex at the time in Morocco, I also met a Moroccan girl who lived in Amsterdam. Long story short, we met up to catch up with her. She's like, my brother just renovated his store. He had a clothing line. She's like, let's go check it out. Went down there. It was closed, but there was a few people there out the back. Went out the back, and the renovation was they just put 2 barber chairs in the back of the clothing store.
Wow. How crazy is that?
Yeah. And so there was a few cats there, and there was a Kiwi dude. And I remember...
Kiwi dude. They're everywhere, aren't they?
Yeah.
Aussies and Kiwis. You can find them in all the crevices of the world.
Yeah. And I remember saying to him, I was just like, man, crazy story. And I told him the story of the dream. And I was like, I owned a barbershop. I've never done it before, but I've like cut a few friends' hair and this and that. And then anyway, I finished the story, he listened, and then he said, well, this is my studio. I was like, no way. He's like, yeah. So he's like, come down. If you like it, if you like the vibe, like just check it out. And then I remember going down. I would spend days there, just because he was such an amazing guy.
Yep.
The energy. This was a clothing line, like it was a streetwear brand, and there was famous DJs, artists, musicians.
So much creativity.
But the coolest part about that is the owners were interested in me. As you said, like the Dutch culture, people are interested, and like this is where I saw all this collaboration, and I was just like, what? I'm like, this is how things are meant to be done. And then anyway, I sat down with my friend, and he said, look, I'll take you on and I'll mentor you. And he's like, and we worked out a price and things like this. And I'd also, come up with the idea of like, how do we actually give back, right? Because it's not just about receiving, it's also about giving.
Yeah, it's balance, right?
It's like balance. And so I, with my ex at the time, we came up with this idea, and basically I was like, I can go volunteer in the homeless shelters and cut hair there. And what I learned from mentorship, I can give back to the homeless. I didn't have enough money at the time, so I linked up with a friend who is a videographer, and we shot a whole piece on it, and we did a Kickstarter.
Wow.
And we raised the money to make it all happen.
That's amazing.
So for 10 months, I volunteered in 2 homeless shelters, and I gave over 300 free haircuts.
And what did you learn about that? That's some pretty powerful stuff. And I talk about this with quite a few people. Some people in the homeless, I wouldn't say industry, but people that are homeless have got some of the most craziest stories and are so intelligent.
Incredible.
I could go on about it, but yeah, what's some of the things that you learned about it?
That support is, in any form, is the number one human connection.
Yep.
And it's, what I realized was 99% of people in those shelters were there because of a lack of support in their life.
Yeah.
And I realized that it's so easy for people to fall between the cracks, and once you do, it's very hard to get back up.
Yeah.
See, the way that
there's a big gap there, isn't there?
There's a huge gap.
Yep.
So you'll see the way that the system is designed, that if you follow the structure, you go to school, university or a trade, get a career, buy a house, dog, partner, kids, ... then all good, right? All good, quote unquote.
Yeah, all good, yeah, for sure.
But, and as you might have noticed, in Melbourne there's a lot of homelessness, right?
Yeah.
But what happens if you don't align with that?
Yep.
What happens if you never had the support to have the mental, emotional and physical capacities to be able to align? Then it's like, next thing you know, and this is why I refer back to drugs and alcohol being a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Because the thing that blew my mind is if you're walking down the street and you're standing there and you see a homeless person having a beer on the side of the road, or you can look up and you can see the guy in the penthouse racking lines of coke, and you'd be like, oh, look at this guy on the ground, you know, it's appalling. Like, and the judgment you would have towards this person.
There's a big division.
But what happens if the person up in the penthouse is just coping with their hectic life? You know, and the person, and it doesn't make more sense for the person to have a beer when they're struggling than people just accept the guy who's been a bit wild but he's got a career.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? Like, so socially, it's socially accepted and socially not accepted. And it's like, but what happens if you don't even know the story of why that person's there? What happens if that person was a refugee? What happens if that person actually never grew up with parents?
Yeah.
What happens if that person actually was an asylum seeker? What happens if that person has mental health issues? What happens if he got abandoned? Nobody knows the backstory, but I used to hear all the backstories.
Yeah.
I knew them. I knew these guys and girls personally.
And this sort of opened up your world massively, I assume.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy for people to judge. But where are people judging through the lens of social standards?
And that's also another thing too is, and a lot of people can disagree with this, but I'm a believer of this, is projection is perception, right?
Sure.
So the way that in one form or another, you can see yourself in these people. You cannot perceive something unless you have lived some form of emotion tied to that yourself. So especially if you're not really being able to connect with homeless people or understand why they're there, there's a part of yourself that you can't accept or can't connect with.
Exactly.
And a lot of people don't get that. And yeah, it's a really sad thing, especially in today's culture, of how much we don't understand that kind of element of life, and we choose not to. A lot of people do choose not to. So being able to be around that, it would have been so incredible, and for your growth and your learning and your perception as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's like the external understandings that I developed through that experience, but exactly what you just described, the internal was that I actually realized that I was closer to the people in the homeless shelters than what I actually realized, right? Because at that point in time, I was beginning to recognize my relationship with alcohol was not positive.
Yeah.
Right? And it wasn't like, I wasn't drinking every day at all.
You don't need to be.
I don't need
That's
to
the
be.
thing. Yeah.
But I realized when I drank that's what it was. Because, you know, also to the blessing and convenience of Dutch culture is it's very direct. Very direct. So if you want to learn to do anything, learn to cut hair or any kind of, you know, activity, go do it in the Netherlands, because
they'll tell you how
they'll
it is.
tell you how it is, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So, and I remember a friend and I, we went to a festival, and then it was the next day, and then I bought a couple of beers and whatever, and he's just like, man, you drink a lot of beers. And I was just like, oh man, you think I'm bad? You should see my mates back in Australia.
Yeah.
You know,
It's a whole different world.
it's a whole different world. But
Yeah.
then I realized, I was like, actually probably do,
Yeah.
probably do drink a lot of beers. And so when I was in the homeless shelters, I could deeply empathize for people, but then, you know, I wasn't that far away. And the only reason why I wasn't is because I have a very supportive mother, family. I don't come from a rich family, but if shit hit the fan,
They will be there.
they'd be able to pay for a ticket for me to go home.
Yeah.
Go back to Australia, right?
Yeah.
So I've got a way out. And the crazy part is what a lot of people don't actually consider is, even if it's subconscious, if you've got a backup plan, if you've got a plan B, it is so much different to just riding the lightning. You know, and I saw that in the Aboriginal community. I used to see a lot of teachers and people up there who were kind of a little bit too blasé and a bit, in my opinion, disrespectful, and not really showing up in the way that honours the role that they should be playing in these children's lives.
Yeah.
Because I remember saying to them, I'm like, you've probably got a lot of money in the bank. In fact, you've probably got a house that you can go back to.
Yeah.
I was like, you've got a plan B, and a pretty comfortable one.
Yep.
I'm like, show up for these kids, because they've got no plan B.
Yep.
This is it.
Wow.
You know?
Good on you.
This is it.
Yeah.
And so it changes the game.
Yeah.
Like, and I saw people with I've experienced in my life people with no plan B.
Yeah.
You know? And so then I started, and then after, it was like towards the end of the homeless shelter period, and then I went up to Scotland, where my dad's from, saw my family.
Was that the first time you saw them?
That was the second time. Okay. So I saw them when I was in the UK.
Yep.
It was cool. We went up to like the Shetland Islands. Amazing. And we went to this huge fire festival up Hellier, and it was beautiful. And
cool.
But this was the second time. But the first time that I was meeting I have 6 cousins on my dad's side, and only one of them is male, and it was the first time meeting him for the very first time. And he's only a few years older than me, and we met, and we just like got along like a house on fire, you know, like still to this day, like very connected. And I felt that something within me really awoke once again, because I remember talking to him and saying, this is strange, because you and I have grown up on the opposite sides of this planet. We both work very hard, both respectable guys, but yet when we choose to have beers, we drink in a very, very similar fashion.
Mm-hmm. And Scottish drink too. They can drink. I've got Scottish in my family as well.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, when you're looking around and there's no more drinks in the house and you've already had a pretty solid session, then you kind of go on, all right. And it dawned on me, I was like, this is hereditary. This is not just like cultural.
Yeah.
But of course, like the Australian culture around drinking well and the Scottish culture doesn't support it at all.
Yeah.
So when I returned back to Amsterdam, there was just so much coming up within me that was confronting about my relationship with alcohol and how it was. And so I just thought, no, I'm going to stop drinking. And I did 4 months abstinence. And once again, I'm a reflective person. So I noticed what I'd achieved in 4 months was almost twice as much as what I had in 6 to 7 months, you know, and I just noticed that. And then I got invited to a housewarming, ended up drinking, crashed my bike, had a bit of a wild night.
Would have been a really good moment of reflection then too.
Oh, woke up, like anxiety, like you name it, and I was just like, oh, I felt horrible. And then so I went back to not drinking. So there was another 3 months, and basically this went on, this pattern for a year.
Yeah. In
this time.
And there's that adjustment period as well that we have to give ourselves grace for too.
Totally.
Yeah.
But also in this time I had moved, I finished up in Amsterdam, I moved to California, I got married, and I was living there, and it was just like things started to really kind of cave in, because I wanted to commit on the highest level. I wanted to commit to that relationship. But what it also did by committing was it brought me so close to my own discomfort. So close that I couldn't handle it. You know, and then in those moments...
When you don't know what to do.
And when you don't know what to do, and you don't know what's coming up.
Go the other way. That's what a lot of people do, yeah.
And the thing for me was, I remember I was treating my wife at the time the same way my dad would treat me. The coldness, shut them out.
Well, you modelled him, so that's what you knew.
Exactly.
Yep.
But I didn't know any of this. And I remember saying to myself, I'm like, how can I treat the person that I love so bad, and in the way that I got treated, knowing how much it hurts?
Yeah.
I was like, you know, that moment of confusion? Yeah. It's like, it's so scary and confusing all in one that you don't know what to do.
And I think that's a good example of that's what's been programmed into you as a child. And we only have control of about 10% of our consciousness, consciously, but then that other 90% is all subconscious wiring, modelling from our childhood. So that would have just been literally playing in the background.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what is going on? And even the fact that you brought awareness to that, because a lot of people will go through life not even bringing awareness to the fact that they've just modelled that from their parents, or that they're even in the wrong.
Yeah.
So the fact that you even brought awareness to that and gone, okay, this is just happening and I don't really understand it, but how it's happening, but it's happening, is such a big turning point as well.
Crazy. And I shared with you the analogy before, and I remember, you know, having the construction background. I remember saying to my wife at the time, I was like, it's like I know that I have to build a house. I've got the plans. I know what it has to look like, how to build it, but I have no tools to be able to build it. How am I expected to build a house with no tools? And so, and it's
a great analogy.
And it was the same way. It was like, I know that there's a problem, but I have no idea where to start. I have no idea what it even looks like. I've never even had those conversations. You know, what do I do?
And what did you do?
I reached out for help, for starters. And what I learned by reaching out for help, which there's a bit of a misconception in my professional opinion, is that what people who are unfamiliar with the therapeutic industry scene or connection is that talk therapy is actually facilitating the space for you to practice sharing your emotions and your vulnerabilities. Right? It's people avoid it because they feel it's invasive and it's a little bit daunting,
it's
right?
Vulnerable,
It's vulnerable. But as we mentioned earlier, especially the culture that we grew up in. If there's an example where somebody has an experience, if they don't have the space to be able to express the emotions that they are feeling within it, then, as you said, either it's going to be suppressed and it's going to come up later in life, or they've missed an opportunity to process those emotions. So then what happens is, and this is the biggest difference is, if you look at the feminine, you look at the masculine. The feminine are incredible at naturally supporting emotional availability and nurture. It just happens. Women do it very organically and it happens through your whole life. Men, if you actually think about it, are probably capped emotionally still in their potential teens or early 20s because they don't have the space or the teachers to be able to practice expressing those emotions. And I know that if you look at it in a mechanical form, right, anything mechanical that builds up pressure has to have a release valve. If it doesn't have a release valve, it explodes. Men need to understand that is the same with emotions. It's if you don't release your feelings of emotions, then you either implode or you explode. And that's it. Because it's not sustainable.
No. And it's so great that you explain that too, because I think there needs to be more awareness around that.
And because it isn't taught, it isn't supported, and it isn't role modeled, men simply don't know how to do it. And so the thing is, and let's just fast forward a little bit, like let's just look at a midlife crisis, or let's just say later in life, a man and a woman, for whatever reasons, their marriage doesn't work out, right? The chances of a woman getting back on track and getting her life together and moving forward, I'm not talking about financial stuff, I'm not talking about a system, I'm talking about emotionally, is very strong. Right? Because of all the experience that they've had and the circle of friends and everything of support system, right? The support system's there to make that happen.
And also having that femininity as well as like that mother wound, which we all have, and being able to like take on, we're more vulnerable creatures at the end of the day, so it's easier for us to connect to that emotion, and it's not as shunned upon in society as it would be per se for a male.
Exactly. So then you look at that evolution, they naturally evolve with their emotions. Men, as I said, are capped at their evolution. And if you think about it, instead of sitting there and blaming your ex-wife or blaming the system or blaming whatever, it's about emotionally evolving and moving through it and letting it go to then be able to naturally move forward in your life.
And looking within.
But men get stuck. Like I watched it with my old man. My old man took his own life at the end of last year. Like it could not be more to the point of watching it to the very end.
You did,
And I did, and it's like men hold on to this unnecessarily. And it's like it's so important to let go. But as I said, circling back, if you don't know where to start, That is the scariest part.
Yes.
And my whole objective in the work that I do is supporting people starting and continuing on their journey.
And I cannot fathom enough of how important it is to talk to someone.
Yes.
To talk to someone and let those emotions out. If it may be anger or sadness, I mean, there's a lot of secondary emotions that come to, you know, our first emotions. But just if you do have those feelings, or not even just that, if you're finding that you're getting super angry at people for no reason at all, anger is usually what's prominent in that. You haven't released the anger, but what's underneath anger is also sadness.
Exactly. And
a lot of that sadness can be carried through from childhood if you haven't had the appropriate measures or the safe spaces to release, right?
100%.
And another thing that I always talk upon as well is we quite happily go and get a checkup at the doctor's every 6 months or whatever it may be. But when it comes to mentality, we don't do that.
Yeah.
And the importance of that is the stem of our physical body, right?
Yes.
And we will find that if we're actually doing that regular checkup, we may be protecting dis-ease. And I went into that before as well, but dis-ease, which is predominantly created from not actually dealing with the mental side of things, because then physical things can be created. And a lot of people don't understand that either, is if you bury those emotions, don't deal with them, it will create a physical issue in your body. Tight shoulders, shoulder problems, back problems, knee problems, whatever it may be. Cancer comes predominantly from not dealing with your mental health.
100%.
And I think we need to bring more awareness to the fact of find people to talk to, whoever it may be, but find the professionals or whatever makes sense to you. And if it doesn't feel right with that person, find someone else.
Yeah.
But it's something you need to do on a reoccurring basis.
Yeah.
Because we need to get checked.
Yeah.
And like, especially when you go through really intense moments like divorce or losing someone in your life, these are really prominent times when you need to be reaching out to people and talking and getting that out of your body.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, continue. I wanted to touch on that a bit more.
Yeah, I appreciate that, absolutely. Yeah. And it's crazy to think, it's like, you know, you look at the male suicide rate in Australia, it's astronomical.
Oh, it's crazy.
You know, and you don't need to go down with the ship.
Yeah.
That's the thing, because the ripple effect that mental health awareness and emotional support brings to your life is phenomenal. Right? So
it's a game changer.
It's a game changer. Yep. So why isn't it promoted more? As you said, you go to the doctor if you break your arm, right? Like if it's just like, and that's what was a huge change. And I'm going to be honest and say, because when I was living in the States, my ex-wife was American. She said, like, I think you should go see a therapist. And I was like, no. And the irony is now I'm a therapist, right? Like I turned my nose up at it, and I actually promoted the Australian culture at the time. I said, I'm from Australia. That's an American thing.
Isn't that crazy?
I was like, I'm from Australia. We don't do it like that.
It's so interesting and so cool that you've had such a big turning point though, where you've actually gone and just reflected. And do you think it's because you work with the homeless that really
I think it's
opened that up?
I would say it's a composition of everything, to be honest. And the thing is, like, I love to listen. Like, I truly believe that everybody does have a story.
Oh, they do, yeah.
Everybody's got a story.
Yeah.
And but there's parts of that story that us as individuals simply don't have to hold on to.
Yeah.
And by holding on to that part of the story, it's also holding on to certain beliefs, certain identities, patterns, behavior, stuff that doesn't serve you. Doesn't serve you, your partner, your family, nobody. Yeah. And you're holding on to it for what reason?
And there's also that element of being selfish in a way, because if you're holding on to that story and you're not letting other people hear that story or even just speak to someone about it, you're stopping the potential from other people to learn from other mistakes. Like there's people out there that need to hear your story. Yeah. And they need to learn from that. And they need to know that they're not alone as well. There's so many people out there. And I mean, if there's judgment that comes back from that, they're not your people at the end of the day. Yeah. But it is so important to let that go, as you said, because holding on to that, there is no absolute benefit from it. No. I mean, you know, we've had somewhat similar childhoods, but by holding on to that shit, you're gonna repeat that pattern over and over and over again.
Without a doubt.
And if you have children, same thing. Yeah. So letting go of that, no matter how scary that may feel, there is an evolution, and you'll find so much more about yourself. And I think that's just, it's scary. I know it is scary to talk. It is scary. But once you do it, you realize how how it wasn't scary at all.
Exactly.
And once you get it out, how light you feel. And I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's a relief, right? Yeah, it's a relief. And then you look back and you go, what? I was holding on to that for so long. Like,
and you're carrying emotional baggage, and it's no joke. It feels like you're almost morbidly obese with emotional baggage, and people don't realize the physical element to that.
Man, it's crazy. And I can speak from the masculine as well. Like, I remember when I came back from Amsterdam, or from Scotland, and all of this realization about alcohol, right?
Yeah.
And I rang I was speaking to my mum on the phone, and I admitted to her, I said, Mum, I think I've got a problem with alcohol. And she didn't say anything. She said, Taylor, I'm so proud of you. And I've got a very supportive mother, and she said that a lot through my life, right? But this one particular time, it went through the armor, and it just hit me. And like, I remember getting off that call, and I just burst into tears, you know? And I was just crying and crying. And I was just saying to myself, like, I was just a kid, you know? I was just a kid. And like and I just acknowledged the emotional weight and pain that I was carrying from my childhood and the relationship with my dad. And I was just uncontrollably crying. And it felt like this weight was being lifted off me. And I was just like, and because we're programmed, particularly as men, to not cry, to not show these emotions, do all these things, that I was just like, I learned in that moment the power of it, and the unnecessary need to hold on to stuff that wasn't even about you, right? Like, it was a projection onto you.
Yeah.
And then life, you start living, because you start connecting with who you are, what is actually yours, who you actually align with in the way of your authentic self, you know? And it's not like, oh, okay, I'm from this place, but I don't necessarily agree with everything from that place.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Okay, I'm from this family, but I don't necessarily agree with everything that my family does.
Yeah.
You know, and you start questioning everything. And so, like, the journey of introspection is also incredibly fun.
Yeah.
And it's insightful.
Yeah.
And you get to start inventorying your whole life and how you're showing up, as whether it is truly you or whether it's somebody else.
Yeah.
That's been a version of you that's been molded. And so I'm very fortunate that I've always been very curious, hence the traveling and things like that. And the moment that I channeled that inwards is when my life truly began to change. Because as you said, like, you can always change your external. And a lot of the times you constantly change your external, hoping subconsciously that your insides will change. But the moment you actually start changing yourself from within, then your life changes.
And yeah, you can see how, like, even from like you said, externally, you can see so much changing, but when the internal happens, the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
And it opens so many more doors. So tell us how that led to you becoming, you're obviously now a therapist.
Yes.
So tell us how that kind of evolved into you and becoming that therapist and that evolution point and turning point.
So I was in my barbershop, and I had facilitated that in a way that was a safe space for men. You know, I extended the appointment time to give and allow more space for men to talk. And for a lot of it, even though I said I had an employer, for a lot of it there was also just me. And I realized that my gift was not only communication, but holding space for people as well. So then I realized like how much I love cutting hair, but it's not something I wanted to do for the rest of my life. My passion was more in the communication and connection than what it was cutting hair. So
it's funny you say that too. The amount of hairdressers I have met that are so amazing at holding conversation and being able to like get people to open up is just, like, it's limitless. And really, you become almost a therapist when you're cutting hair. I have noticed that. I just want to touch on that.
Well, so you can imagine, 8 to 10 hours a day, and I used to do hour appointments. I could talk to anybody for a whole hour, and you do that for 8 to 10 hours a day, And so sometimes we are the ones who stand in our own way. We are the ones who stand in our own way.
Absolutely.
But sometimes you need to be the one to see yourself and see the gifts that you hold and see the strengths that you carry. So when you actually recognize and acknowledge it properly, go, look, man, you're so different to everybody else. Like, now it's time to format that into a way that you can actually create more availability for people.
And just to touch on that too, if you don't know where to start in the sense of trying to find out who you are underneath it all, a really good stepping stone too is journaling and actually getting out what's in here. And you'll find, especially if you incorporate a bit of meditation into journaling, so you meditate and then journal, you're actually tapping into the subconscious mind too. So you can start to see patterns, behaviours, also things that you might be good at, things that keep coming up. I think for someone who really does not know where to start, that can be a stepping stone, a very good starting point of just writing stuff down, because the power in that, getting it out on paper, what's in the head. Because sometimes all these things we don't even know what's playing in the head a lot of the time.
Oh, yeah.
Too, and I mean, you had that opportunity of where you could step into that fear and do something that you've never done before, which is really cool. So you learnt that way. But I think when people are scared to even take that step, that first step could be just simply journaling. And obviously talking to someone, but journaling,
Exactly, and like anything you can do in the privacy of your own home in a positive way, stepping forward, is always going to benefit, right? So everything is about awareness. And the more awareness you bring to something, the more awareness you have of something.
More control you have over it.
Exactly. So when you realize why, and you don't even have to start by going back and where did this come from, just more about the awareness of your actions, the awareness of your feelings and the awareness of your emotions. Like, if somebody said to me years ago, like, what are your emotional needs? I'd be like, what the hell are needs? Let alone emotional needs, And so, and the thing is, particularly for men, is starting is just about starting. And trusting that this is just a journey. And some people arrive at places quicker than others. It might take people a little bit longer. But at the end of the day, it's like, when you invest in yourself, it is the greatest investment you will ever make. And
oh, absolutely. And I preach that to the world. There is no bad investment as an investment on yourself.
No, because your life will change. And the only thing that I'll say around it, and the reason why people don't do it as much, is because we're so programmed for tangibility. Like, if you spend $3,000 on a new TV, you've got something to show for it, right?
It's physical.
It's physical. It's there. But when you spend $3,000, and I can't even tell you the amount of thousands of dollars I've spent on myself and mental health, right? But when you spend $3,000 on yourself, there's no tangible results, quote unquote. But the moment that you experience something that you've experienced before in a different form and you handle it different, there is no greater feeling.
And there's also that energy element to it as well, as when you actually, and because money is a frequency, right?
Sure.
And when we do actually start putting money into ourselves, there's a whole energy element where that changes the whole game. When you start putting things into you, your life starts to change, and the things around you, because you see yourself worthy enough to get your needs met, or to uncover what may be holding you back. And again, that's not something that's talked about enough, is actually even taking that step to putting your own your own energy into yourself can completely change your life.
Self-worth is huge. Like, it's everything. And then once again, it can be confronting when you realize how little you value yourself. And you're like, fuck. And you think about it, right? Like, the most beautiful part about raising self-awareness is the relationship you build with yourself. So I used to have the most negative self-talk, right? That's why drinking was so easy. It was just like, I have a bunch of drinks, I'm a nice person, so have all these... and it just numbs you, and it just like have all these lovely conversations. But then the flip side of that is like that, the high standards, high expectations, the pressure, all this stuff that I was putting on myself that I received in my childhood, that it was like, man, that part's the exhausting part. If you're with yourself 24/7 and you have negative self-talk, like, that shit is exhausting. It's honestly exhausting. And then when your relationship with self changes, so does your self-worth. So does the way you see yourself, so the way you value yourself. So as we talk about, once again, it's the ripple effect that changes, because it's the same thing. You don't make the same choices. It's not possible to make the same choices because you value yourself enough to not put yourself in a particular situation.
And when you, just to touch on the ripple effect too, one thing I've noticed, and I'm sure you've noticed as well, is when you start putting energy into yourself and investing in yourself or whatever it may be, working on yourself, how it affects the people around you.
Oh, wow.
Right? It is incredible. It still blows my mind today of how those people around you, they start seeing it, they start feeling it, you start having different conversations, people start to wake up. And you're not only helping and bettering yourself, you're helping your family, your friends, the people around you, maybe your partner. Like, it's just, it still to this day blows my mind how powerful just making that move is.
Oh, it's incredible.
For everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, like, you know, even as an example, my mum, like, the relationship that we have now is so beautiful because she has looked within herself. And
you probably make her do that without even, you know, realizing, but as she's seen you've had the confidence to, well, the courage, sorry, not confidence, courage to do that.
Yeah.
She probably is like, oh, my son's doing it, I can do it too.
Yeah, and full credit to her as well to be able to take that time to self-introspect and to look and you know, when I would share things about my experience, my personal experience with my father, of course there was times where she would feel upset and she'd be sad and, you know, think about the things that she didn't do.
I think a lot of parents can resonate with that. A lot of parents.
And what I would explain to her, I said, Mum, I don't hold any judgment or any criticism towards this. What I'm sharing with you is a personal experience. So I can create separation from that, so I can embody the part of me that wants to be the healthy version, the supportive and emotional, stable version, right?
That's beautiful.
Not the person who blames. Like this is the opposite of blame.
It's not a blame game. Yeah.
This is actually forgiveness. It's compassion, and it's letting go.
Yeah.
And then once my mum saw that then was the case, and it wasn't a threat, or I wasn't pointing the finger, she did the same. So like I'm watching her grow and let go and realize that the way that my dad treated her was not her fault.
No. And they're only doing the best that they can with the tools and resources they're given.
Exactly.
Which again can be through what they've learned in their own childhood. And that's that whole generational trauma or whatever it may be, where they're only doing the best they can with what they know. And then you thankfully or luckily they got to a point in your life where you just said, it stops with me. It ends with me.
Yeah.
Right?
And you can feel that when you're a cycle breaker. You know? And I remember that the crazy part was I remember I was like 13 years old, 14 years old, and you know, my dad had just smashed up the house and bits and pieces, and I remember saying, like, first off I was like, I'm never drinking, right? But then I also remembered making a pact with myself. I said, if alcohol ever becomes a problem in my life, I'm just gonna quit. And then when I was going through my personal journey and I realized the relationship where it was heading with alcohol, I remember the deal, the pact I had with myself. And so I was already receiving the messages that this is where it stops.
I had a very similar experience to you, and it's, again, very powerful moment when you can bring awareness to that.
Yeah, and the crazy part is when sometimes being shown what not to do is more powerful than being shown what to do.
Yeah.
Because I had so much evidence of what alcohol can do negatively that I was just like, why would I want that?
Yeah.
You know, but you have, and we spoke about earlier, like you have to come to your own realizations, your own will and desire to want to change.
And there's also that element of surrounding yourself with people of different walks of life and also different environments. So you can actually see what that does when you're not in, like if you're stuck in that environment and you're so used to that and you can't see another way, being able to like branch out and see what else is happening around the world, or even, you know, in your country, or just being around different people, that can really open your eyes to being able to model off maybe someone else or whatnot, and seeing what else is another opportunity.
And also remembering too that the people that you are potentially might be surrounding yourself with now, it might be like negative connotations, is remembering to not take it personally when you start to change, being that the people that you're with don't actually want you to change. And it's not a personal thing.
Yeah,
it's just, it's a comfort thing.
Yeah.
Because if you change, then they are forced to look at themselves. And the reason why they haven't changed is because they don't want to look at themselves. Yep. So I remember being in Oz, I'd stop drinking and I would still go to parties, I'd go socialize, and people would be like, oh, you're not drinking? I'm like, no, not drinking. And at first I'd like make up excuses, driving, whatever, and then I eventually got to the point I was like, no, I don't drink.
Yep.
Why don't you drink? And they'd start asking into it.
People think there's something very wrong when you don't drink in Australia.
It's crazy. It's the only...
Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, it's wild. It's the only drug that you have to give a reason why you're not doing it.
Yep.
And so, but the saddest part was eventually my social life just stopped. Like it was non-existent. And I realized, and it took me a long time to accept, that I was becoming a mirror to a lot of people. And a lot of people didn't like what they saw because they saw their personal relationship with alcohol.
Yeah.
And I would try and remind them that me choosing to stop drinking has nothing to do with you.
Yep.
In fact, you could drink every single drink here and I would not judge you one single bit. But what ends up happening is the quick fix solution is, if this person makes me feel uncomfortable, whether I know it or not, don't invite that person. Like, just remove the mirror. So when it comes to change, even though you want to change, a lot of people don't want you to change because it's that comfort, it's that familiarity, it's the thing. So the actual breaking away from that environment, and I would say this when I worked in the rehab, I said the number one challenge you will face is environmental. Because if you leave here and go back to the environment you're from, there's going to be so many challenges.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, absolutely. And I think noting on that too as well, a lot of people really struggle with that idea of leaving their environment and leaving, it's familiarity, right?
Sure.
And then having that change. But I mean, even to note on that, I can promise people in that sense, when you do start moving with that different energy, you will find the people who are also moving in that energy. It happens. Yes, there may be a little bit of a moment where you might have a solitary, situation. But solitary also isn't that bad when you could go within. But eventually you will find your people. Yeah. It will happen. Yeah. You're not going to be by yourself forever wondering like, where are they? Where's my people? And you may need to look for it in the sense of like, if you, as you said, you've got to remove yourself from that environment, you may need to go to a new environment, but they are there. Those people are around. You've just got to have the faith within yourself that you can do it and you can change.
So true. And to be honest, like, if a person is unfamiliar with big change or finding that new environment, that's when, if you can get some guidance to then know what to look out for, to then recognize what feelings are very normal, what challenges are very common, and just have more understanding of how that transition looks, feels, and how it aligns, right? Yeah. Because I'm sure a lot of the work that you've done has been done by just trial and error, right? Just putting yourself out there and just like getting the bumps, getting the bruises, sitting with yourself, this and that. And that's what I find so beautiful about the day and age we're in now, is there is avenues you can go down. There's people you can reach out to for even just, hey, did you ever experience this? Or what about that? Like, man, I wish I had that stuff.
Yeah, and I think there's so many more people available, as you were saying, this day and age now, because I think a lot more people are starting to realise I can actually help other people like yourself. And that's actually a really good point to touch on. If people resonated with you in this conversation, is there a way that they can reach out to you and maybe explain exactly what you do as well, like what services that you provide? Absolutely.
So I've taken my therapeutic background and I've put it into a packaging system where, because I remember at the beginning, yeah, I was talking to therapists and this and that, but it's like you go have a session and then you go home and you try and integrate it somehow, but nobody teaches you how to integrate, right? So what I've designed is a wraparound support system. So clients come and see me, we have our sessions together, then we'll have, depending on where they're at personally and what they want to dive into, there's also options of integration sessions. So there's sessions around how that integration works, what comes up and how it looks and feels. But in between those, there's WhatsApp connections and stuff. So when people really actually feel that support system, as I said, like, it's been a long time that I've known the value and importance of support. So that's what I offer to the people that I work with. And what I've seen is what might, and admittedly took me years, I've seen that kind of progress in months. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Because it's there. It's like, hey Taylor, what do I do here? Or what about this? What about that? Sure, bang. You've got somebody. It's like, imagine having a therapist on call. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a game changer.
It's a game changer completely. So, and that is what feels most aligned to me. Because, and I only work with a small number of clients because I have to also be gentle with my capacity. And I want to make sure that everybody I work with is getting the right amount of support. And this is important to me.
And how can people contact you?
So they can go to plumplanes.com or they can go to the Instagram page plum_planes.
Thank you so much for taking the time today. It was such a pleasure talking to you. Give us a hug.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.